Pump prices in the country are expected to increase again for the 10th consecutive week. Candidates for the upcoming elections continue to make rounds in several areas to secure votes. And more Filipinos are set to be repatriated from Ukraine as the conflict with Russia continues. Fast, focused, and fearless, here's a roundup of stories we're watching now. I'm Riza Diaz. One transport group renews its call for a fare hike amid a continuous increase in oil prices. Faith Del Mundo has the story.
Another week, another round of price increase on petroleum products. According to UniOil, the price of diesel may go up by to 5 pesos 50 centavos per liter, while gasoline may increase by up to 3 pesos and 50 centavos. This will be the 10th straight week of oil price hikes. The Energy Department is also expecting this but refused to provide an estimate for the increase.
Ayaw po natin ma-impluwensyahan ang magiging desisyon ng mga oil companies next week. But ang masasabi ko lang po namin dahil sa binibigay kong mga figure sa Dubai, crude price, nagiging subject tayo sa price taking, kung anong nangyayaring price sa international market ay naipapass on po dito sa domestic market.
Many have pointed out the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine as the reason for the oil price hikes. The DOE, however, said this is just one factor.
Wala pa pong actual sanction sa Russian oil export. But yet, naobserbahan na natin sa market yung pag-i-increase ng price. And definitely, klaro po ito na this is brought about by speculation in price.
Amid the tightened supply, the agency said there is still enough oil for the country.
Ang monitoring po natin as of February 28, sumusobra po ng average of 40 days.
The DOE held an emergency meeting to discuss discount programs and subsidy to help the transport sector. But for Manibela, there is already a need to increase the minimum fare to at least 12 pesos.
Ito ay konting hiling lang natin sa LTFRB na mapayagan at hinihingi natin yung pangunawa ng ating mga mahal na mananakay para makapagserbisyo tayo ng maayos dahil hindi na po namin talaga kinakaya yung taas ng presyo ng krudo.
In the meantime, the DOE makes sure that oil firms are complying with the minimum inventory requirements. Meanwhile, the National Economic and Development Authority said its restrictions could also help.
Malaking bagay po yung yung napunta na sa alert level 1, especially ang NCR at saka yung mga karatig na lugar. Ang gusto nga po namin mangyari is lahat na talaga na buong Pilipinas na mamalaga na sa alert level 1 kasi isa rin po talaga to sa makakatulong para ma-cushion natin yung impact nitong Ukraine crisis.
For News 5, Faith Del Mundo, we are One News.
Some presidential bets visited different areas today to woo voters. Presidential candidate Ferdinand Marcos Jr. made rounds in Masbate. After a motorcade, he spoke before the residents of the province and promised to revive their COVID-hit tourism industry. Meanwhile, Vice President Leni Robredo, who's also gunning for the top seat, made her way to Bulacan. There, she met with supporters and local officials. Robredo's camp capped off the night with the People's Rally at the New Malolos City Hall. And Aksyon Demokratiko standard bearer Isko Moreno concluded the Northern Luzon leg of his campaign in Kalinga. In his speech, Moreno vowed to protect farmers and also took a swipe at fellow bets who allegedly use church groups for their own agenda. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The Foreign Affairs Department is ramping up its repatriation efforts for Filipinos in Ukraine amid the ongoing Russian invasion. The DFA confirmed that 21 Filipino crew members of MVS Breeze from Ukraine will be arriving in the country on Tuesday. The group was evacuated from the vessel that has been on a dry dock for repairs at the port of Odessa, Ukraine since January 27. Now, along with this, 13 out of the 31 crew members of Star Helena were able to cross the Moldova border on Friday. Now, the crew were successfully evacuated from Kromorsk and are waiting their repatriation to the Philippines. A week into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a former official of NATO dives deeper into the situation and the organization's role in the war. Let's watch this.
There's a lot of talk about whether the economic sanctions will be enough to, I guess, reverse some of what Putin is doing here. But there have been a lot of calls now for some degree of a military response, particularly from NATO. We've heard from NATO officials today on this Friday, basically saying that they have no intention, at least right now, to enter into Ukrainian airspace or to put boots on the ground here. Do you think that that is a position that NATO can stand by?
I think the Secretary General Stoltenberg was right when he spoke after the foreign ministers meeting today. NATO's biggest responsibility right now is to stop this invasion in Ukraine from becoming a general war in Europe, from becoming World War III. Nobody wants to see that. It's in nobody's interest to do so. And so I think it is extraordinarily important for NATO to help the Ukrainians in every way it can, both on the military front and also on the humanitarian front, but not to put boots on the ground and not to implement a no-fly zone. So I do think that has to be the top strategic objective for NATO right now, to avoid World War III.
There's also, of course, concerns about the nuclear issue here. We saw, of course, footage of what appeared to be an attack by Russian forces on a nuclear facility in Ukraine. That, of course, alarmed a lot of folks about the security of some of those facilities. What can be done, if anything, to ensure the security of those facilities?
Well, the Russians certainly know nuclear power plants. They built those VVRs along with the Ukrainians during the Soviet era, so they know them well, they understand them well. What worries me is that they're not taking a very responsible stance now toward attacking civilian targets of all kinds, especially, a nuclear power plant. So we really did dodge a nuclear bullet last night, I think. But it is, I think, nevertheless important to not only pay attention at an international level. Rafael Grossi, the Secretary General of the IAEA, Director General, speaking to the UN Security Council this morning, keeping those controls in place at an international level to the degree possible, and certainly the attention of the world at an international level. But then second, I think to remind the Russians that, in fact, if there were a nuclear accident at that plant, it could impact Russian territory. It could result in radiation contamination of Russian territory. Do they really want to see that in their most fertile farmland down there in the south of Russia? I don't think so. So it's in their interest to ensure also that this plant remains safe and secure and does not get attacked.
Draw on your experience here. When people start talking about a new Cold War, is that overstated?
Well, there's a big difference from the Cold War. We were really cut off from each other during the Cold War in so many ways. The communications that led to the lack of communications that led to the Cuban Missile Crisis 60 years ago this year, ironically, actually, it's much different now. We have many, many lines of communication open with Russia. You've seen Chancellor Scholz and President Macron calling Putin in the last couple of days. We will stay in touch. We will continue. I think that gives us an opportunity for some intensified diplomacy and efforts to stop this terrible invasion. So if there's a ray of light and hope here, it's that this is not the Cold War.
Now, for more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.
of your business, Carlo, because if you don't have to worry about the brick and mortar side,